Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to look at materials and how to create your first material inside of Blender. So before we do that, we are going to install an add-on that's going to make your life a little bit easier when working with the material nodes. So first of all, make sure that you have your project open. We are going to go and install the add-on. So click on edit and then go to preferences. And this is where we install any add-ons for Blender. So if you go to the add-on tab, you will see a list of installed add-ons and we simply going to search add-on called Node Wrangler. Make sure that you have unticked these enable add-ons only. Then you can see any add-ons that's not currently enabled and you'll see one that's called Node Wrangler as you can see there. You can also expand it to kind of just read a bit about it. You can look at the documentation if you want to, but you simply need to just click this box. And then the add-on will be active, so we can save the preferences by clicking this little line, save preferences, and then you can simply just close the Blender preferences. Now we got that add-on installed. Next, you need to download a texture that you want to apply to your chair. Now I've got a very simple wood texture that I'm going to show you guys how to apply. You can simply search on Google for wood texture, or you can go to a website like Polyheaven or maybe a Pixel. There are many different texture websites that you can use to download free textures. Or simply just Google image and search for a wood texture. You need to make sure that the wood texture is high quality. Because if you have a very low resolution or a low quality texture, then your chair will have that low quality texture. So make sure that you download something that's nice, high resolution. Once you have your texture saved to your hard drive, you can continue to the next step. So to create our first material, simply click on your chair to select it. And then we are going to go to the shading workspace right here at the top of the interface. You will see shading. So just click on that to open the shading workspace. Now you will see this will automatically change your view to the material preview render, so we can actually see the material applied onto our model, and by default it will have this white material at the bottom. Now I can expand this and resize it, and the node system you can use these same controls. So holding middle mouse you can pan around, holding control middle mouse you can zoom in and out. You can also click on some of these nodes and you can move them around simply by dragging like that. But we are going to delete this default material and create a new material from scratch. So you will see it says materials here at the top. This is the name of the current material, but we just want to remove this one for now. So click on the little X next to that to remove it. So now we are going to create a new material for the chair. So make sure that your chair is selected and then simply click on the new button at the bottom to create new material. Now we can give a name to our material. I want to rename that to something a little bit easier to recognize. So I'm simply going to click here and let's give this a name. I type wood and then press enter. And now this is our wood texture basically. So now we can create different nodes and just create different textures or materials for this. So the add-on that we install, Node Wranglers, gives you some shortcuts to simply add some nodes. Normally for this node we will have to recreate manually. But all we need to do is click on the first node and then press Ctrl T, and it will create these 3 nodes for you. Now you can press G to move these nodes around, or you can simply just highlight them and drag them around. Now the principal BSDF is your main shader. And this is where you can change the roughness or the metallic value or the specular value. So first let me quickly just explain what some of these nodes do. So the first node is the texture coordinate node. And that's will telling you how to apply the material to the 3D object. And all you need to do here is make sure that it's coming from the UV map and then it's going to go into the vector. So it means we are going to use the UV map that we created earlier. Next is the mapping node, and there is where you can adjust how the material is applied. So you can actually move the material around, you can rotate it, or you can scale it. But for now, we'll just leave it as default. Next is the image texture node, and this is where we can actually load in that wood texture that we have downloaded before. So I'm going to click and open, and then I'm going to browse to the folder where I saved that wood texture. Simply select the image texture that you have downloaded. Now this can be a JPEG or a PNG or maybe a TIFF file. Just select that image that you downloaded. Click on open image, and now you will see that our chair will update it with that wood material. Now we can make some adjustment here. I can maybe set the roughness if I lower this down. You can see that it will make our texture a lot shinier. Or I can increase the roughness to make it more of a matte material so it's not reflecting anything. So it depends on the type of wood, I suppose, but you can just change this value and see what it does. So the same goes for the metallic slider, so you can increase that to give them more of a metallic material. So if I decrease the roughness to make it a bit more shinier, you can see that's almost looking like a little bit of a metallic object. So obviously with wood, we want to set the metallic value down to 0 maybe, and then play with the roughness until you get a look that you are happy with. So I'm not going to go into too many details now, but this is basically how you apply a normal texture. So with this material applied, let's go over the UV editing workspace here at the top, so I can show you how this material has been applied to the model. So first, let's change the render mode here at the top. You can just scroll to the left, and I'm going to set this to material previews so we can actually see the material in the 3D viewport on the side. So now if I click one of these faces, you can see that face is actually representing that section. So I can click on another one, and I can see this one represent that section of our image. So look what will happen if I take this face and I press G to move it around. If you look at the 3D model on the right hand side, you can see how that texture is actually moving because I'm moving the UV map around, so I can also scale it. So press S to scale, and as you can see, it will change the way that the material is applied to the 3D model. And I think this will make you understand UV unwrapping a little bit easier. So as you can see, it's basically just showing what's underneath that UV map or that UV island. And that's what you will see on your 3D models. So I'm going to scale this back, and I'm kind of just going to place it here, and this can overlap. It all depends on your texture that you are using. Let's say it's got an image of something or maybe some text, then obviously you don't really want to overlap it. It depends if you want the same part of the image on multiple faces of your model, but normally you can overlap them if it's something like a wooden texture or just something that you won't really notice that it's reusing different parts of the image on your model. So we can do the same with this one. I can scale this one up and kind of move it around until I get the look that I want. So maybe for these front legs and maybe for this section, you can rotate them as well, and you can see how that will affect the model on the right hand side. So I want to rotate this to 90 degrees. To do that, just press R and then simply type 90, and that's going to rotate it exactly 90 degrees. So let's scale that up a bit, maybe move it around, and let's look at our 3D model to see how that looks. So we can do the same with the sides. So this one is pretty nice, but I can maybe scale it up a bit and just to get something that looks a bit better. So we can do the same for the back with some kind of select all these faces, and I'm going to scale them up and kind of move it to the center. So you can do this to kind of just adjust how the material has been applied to your model. So we can do the same with this side. Let's select all these faces and maybe let's scale this up and move it up so we get a little bit of different look. So now I can see these two faces. They are not kind of connected on the left hand side if I select both of them like that. That's why we actually see a seam right here, because they are not next to each other. That's what we really want, because we don't really want this to be a seamless wooden texture going from here over to that one. It is not realistic. So play around with the UV map, select some of these faces, move them around, scale them around, and see what looks best for your chair. And then you can also go back to the shading tab and make some more adjustments on this Principle BSDF or node to just get the exact look that you're going for. So maybe I want to increase the roughness a little bit more to make it less reflective. Now if you look at the nodes again quickly, you can see that the image texture node, the wooden texture that we have downloaded, we are connecting that to the base color of this Principle SDF shader. So you can disconnect this by just kind of clicking and dragging that to disconnect that. And then you can specify your own base color. So I can click on the base color here and I can make this blue or red or anything. And that will apply a normal color to your chair. But because we want to use an image texture, that's why we're connecting that image texture to the base color and use that image as the base color basically. So that's why we see the wood on our model. So play around with some of these nodes and play around with some of these sliders and see what they do. So once you're happy with this, we can go back to the layout tab. We can also switch over to material preview at the top just to kind of see our material in the 3D viewport. Then you can save your project by just going File, Save, or the shortcut Ctrl S. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.